Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the work session, the monthly work session of the East Rockaway Board of Education. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. At this time, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, we have a presentation from Mrs. Bonacors.
Good evening. Thank you for being here to listen about how school counseling department puts kids first. They're true. Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna stand here just to avoid that. So there are a lot of ways that there are some questions asked specifically of how the counseling department is putting students first. And one of the questions highlighted individual relationship building. So one of the things that we do to really enhance our relationships with students is our visibility. We're in the hallways during passing, and we get to see, we're in a really nice area where there's a lot of traffic. So we can typically see any student that we're looking for during that time at some point of the day. They're likely in that area. And our middle school counselor is often in the middle school wing during that time as well. So while she doesn't have the same accessibility to that main wing as we do, she's often in the middle school wing, and that's how we get a lot of our work done. Something that we really brought to the table was counsel by wandering. So having the opportunity to catch a student, invite them into the office, catch a student, remind them to check an email, something like that. With my onboarding, one of the things that I brought to the school was School Counseling Week. This is a national week that is celebrated to honor the unique work of school counselors. And over the years, we've had students fill out cards to show appreciation for faculty members, family members, teachers, counselors, and we've hung them up on display. And that's given us time. Often we've done that in the rotunda, and we've taken time to interact with students and have some face time with them outside of that counseling, typical in the office style of counseling. So that's also supported our working with students. And in School Counseling Week, we've often embedded our post-secondary planning night, which we did this year as well. Yesterday, we had a pretty extensive day of workshops. We had an essay writing workshop where we engaged the English teachers to learn about the college essay writing process, our faculty to learn about letter of recommendation writing, and then we had a panel of representatives from 7 colleges who spoke with our teachers throughout the day to then meet with our families and students and speak about the entire application landscape. So part of the relationship building with students happens through our connections with the teachers, as well as representatives in a variety of post-secondary areas. I mentioned our counsel by wandering, our visibility during passing. We have a birthday program in the junior high school. Every student gets something on their locker when it's their birthday. They get a sign and a lollipop. And it's just something that reminds them that their counselor is thinking of them, and it makes them feel special. We have also started moving more into classroom visits, which has created a lot of opportunities for us. So example, Ms. Horvath's class has a Shark Tank. Our counselors for the past 2 years that she's had this program where the students have pitched a business proposal. Counselors participated the last 2 years that she's done it. We have partnered with the SUPA child development class and done visits to the elementary school where we observed our students working with the elementary school children in the UPK program. So we participated in a couple of those visits, and the partnership that we've created with some of these teachers have enabled us to get into the classroom more frequently. So another example of this is participating in the visit to Rachel Ray, the presence in the classroom. The students will ask, you know, can this teacher come on a trip? Can this counselor come on a trip? So just seeing us and getting more comfortable with the counselors, not just in the office, but in the classrooms as well. Our involvement has supported our individual relationship building. We had 3 participants from our department in the faculty chorus this year, 2 participants last year. One of our counselors is a class advisor, so there's a lot of FaceTime there, as everybody knows. It's a very, very busy person these days. And also one of our counselors is a student council advisor. So seeing the counselors outside of the office setting, in a more social environment allows the students to have additional types of relationships with counselors who may not even be their own. We've run counseling groups from an E&L group, we have a new student group, and also needs-based. So sometimes we'll have students come in that are struggling in a certain class. If we have 2 students who are coming in and struggling in the class, they might think they're coming to speak about getting out of the class, how hard it is, and then essentially they become a counseling group. How do we succeed in this class? And then it moves from the question of the class to just general work with the counselor and continuous relationship building. And individual meetings, some of the questions we ask are, what kind of student are you? So we really like to focus on, if I'm gonna bring I saw your grades, you're not doing well in this area, you're doing well in this area. We like to put it on the student and ask them, what kind of student are you? If I brought up your grades, would you be proud of what you saw? Would you be disappointed with what you saw? Tell me where you're excited to talk about and where we need to focus on to build you up to where your realistic goals may lie. So in those meetings, we also review classes of interest. The student might come up and say, not doing well in science, it's not my favorite subject, but I'm doing really well here because I like, and then that could get us into conversation about electives, and then we'll continue to follow through with the student. As this is also helpful because as scholarship opportunities come up, the student says, I'm interested in education, and an education scholarship comes up, we're not just going to blast that email out. We will do that. We will put it in the newsletter. We will send out an email to everyone, put it on Google Classroom, but we will call down individual students that meet the needs of certain scholarship programs, and we're only able to do so by building relationships with our students. We're also going to look at some future planning, and then when we consult with our neighboring districts, we are part of the South Shore Consortium, formerly Holler, and many of them will share, and some of them have even worked in this building and they're now at neighboring districts. They share that the amount of mental health counseling and support that we provide, despite our size, is far beyond some of the schools that they are currently at. So it's something that we're actually really proud of, that we're able to have that open door policy with our students where they're so comfortable coming in and speaking with us. Some of the individual relationship building happens in the classrooms as well. As I mentioned earlier, here's a snapshot by quarter of some of the things that we do. I mentioned School Counseling Week. There are workshops per grade level almost on a quarterly basis. Some are an entire period long, and some might be a 10-minute push-in just to remind seniors that it's time to enter some data into Naviance to highlight where they were accepted, where they were waitlisted, and where they were denied from college. Another shorter presentation that we might do with students is an individual progress report and career plan. We capture some data there with a student survey that we walk them through that guides us in our scheduling meetings with them. So when a student completes their career plan and their individual progress report, we're going to learn some information about them that we may not already have, or additional information to support what classes we might recommend, what post-secondary plans we might help them with, depending on what they answer, what clubs we want them to get involved in if they identify an interest and aren't already involved in a particular club. Parent nights as well at every grade level. And here's just some photos of some of the things that we participate in. We have School Counseling Week here. We have programming here. If I could just move over here, this is Shark Tank. This is obviously the chorus with several members. Class advisor at Rock Rivalry, School Counseling Week. And this is really a nice picture of Counsel by Wandering. This is so much of what happens at the middle level with our students. And then also, as we get to high school, when we're talking about classes that are a little more specific to a post-secondary plan, we don't always have them in the hallway depending on the student comfort level. They'll be in the office, but we really do like the opportunity to be visible with a student and have non-confidential conversations out in the hallway whenever possible. So we are accessible to as many students. And then they're interested and excited, well, why are you seeing your counselor? Am I seeing them next? When am I going to have this opportunity? Course selection was another area that was, there was a question about how we put kids first in course selection. Some of that I've already touched on, which would be our individual progress report and career plans. As I mentioned, we use these to recommend electives. If a student comes into our office and they're unsure of what they want to take, we're going to look at some of that information they provided, very low inference questions that can trigger the counselors to make recommendations. We'll also identify where students need to take a step forward. If they're doing really well in an area, if they're excelling in math, we're going to encourage that dual enrollment. We're going to encourage that AP. If they're struggling, we will tell them, you don't need to proceed in an AP or dual enrollment here. Be where you're comfortable so you feel proud of the grades that you're producing and you don't feel like you're struggling to meet what your realistic goals might be. Another thing that we do with course selection is we're vetting students for Barry Tech and our new Nassau program. We've advocated for more spots over the year. We're really proud of the partnership that we've created with Barry Tech. We have been identified in Nassau County as one of 2 schools that conduct site visits to the students. So for the past 2 years, that's something that we've done. And it's a really great opportunity for me to see our students doing the hands-on work that they're always talking about, that they're passionate about, and that we share with them, here's what you'll be able to do. We can actually tell them, we saw a student in a flight simulator. We saw a student cleaning out an animal cage. We're not just saying, in animal care, you, and look up to see what the description is. We're having these hands-on opportunities with the students. Last year, the students gave me an assessment of sewing. And I do have to admit, it was not my finest moment. I got a 70, but they had so much fun teaching me how to sew and then laughing at my inability to do it successfully. We have collaborative meetings to evaluate the Barry Tech application process annually. So we have all of our key players at the table. We're looking at student attendance, student behavior, a whole bunch of things that support the students' promise in this program. So it's a very comprehensive process and it's only improved over the years. We used to have a paper application that we filled out with a parent signature. Now we have a family statement. We have a student statement. We're putting some accountability on the student and the family to really gauge their interest to support how successful they will be and how invested they are in this program. And with our interest from Taste of Tech, we've had a panel, class presentations, evening presentations with students as well. We had one of our students from the Nassau program speak on their experience to potential students that might be enrolling next year. And with those, going back to some of the individual relationship building, I've become the counselor for the Nassau students, and I hold individual and group counseling meetings with our students monthly. So the group counseling meetings are great. We hear about the transportation issues earlier in the year. Students were confused over where they're going on campus, and they were able to talk these things out together. So that's another way that we are building individual relationships with them. As mentioned, I'm the dedicated counselor for Nassau, as for BOCES, which really helps the communication with the Nassau liaison and BOCES. Previously, if rock rivalry were coming up, we'd have one student reach out. Am I excused from this? Do I come? I have a ceremony in the morning. We have career day. Now it's just the communication with me and the BOCES liaison and the students and families, and it's not happening piecemeal. So we're really not just working on our students, but our partnership relationship building as well. We've also, with course selection, we have started collaborating annually with department chairs to review the process of course selection and also to hear about new courses. We visit the classes also to get a little experience of what's happening in each of these classes. So if I have to tell a student the difference between career and financial management and financial algebra, which is a course that, which is coming up, we will be able to tell them exactly what happens in the class and not just read a description, because having that in-class experience really elevates it for us. It's almost like being on a college campus. You can tell a student what's on a college campus, but visiting is where you get that robust experience of what it will actually be like. And our counselors have participated in some of those activities as well with our students, which enhances not just our ability to recommend courses, but once again, our relationship building with them. We're partnering this year with our junior high avid course to implement career awareness and support Naviance. So we're really leaning on some of our elective teachers to learn more about what they're doing in the class and how we can work together to make sure our kids are being put first. And some of that is through our program with Avid and doing career assessments and then projects based off of the students' assessment results. So that's something that's upcoming that we're really excited about. Here's some photos from our BOCES visits. Our visit to, this is our trip to Rachel Ray. This is my lack of ability to sew. This is a trip. We had our first ever PSAT day trip to a college. We went to St. Francis. This is us in the pre-K in the UPK classroom with students watching what they're doing. And then some photos from BOCES, the Barry Tech program, as well as Long Island High School for the Arts. And post-secondary counseling is something that our department has become increasingly proud of. Our meetings begin in February, and in the past, we've struggled with students talking about post-secondary counseling because so often college is what is being pushed. You're going to college, and students feel sometimes that, okay, well, I have to go to college, and if I'm not sure where I'm going to go, I might go somewhere local that may not be the best fit financially, that may not be the best emotionally, academically, for maturity purposes. So in our real individualized sessions, we're able to determine the best fit for the student financially, academically, and just for who the student is as a person. I say that each college has a personality, and we want to match that college personality with our students as well, and making sure it's an appropriate fit. We're initiating all of our school counseling post-secondary appointments by outreach through an email went out to families. It's in our school counseling newsletter, and we're also making phone calls to each junior family to set them up for an appointment. Everything is tailored to the individual needs. So when we identify the pathways, we're doing it through Naviance and other relevant platforms. So we might be looking at ONET. We might be looking at, we're also evaluating different platforms that might be more beneficial to our students who are more interested in the trades. This is an area that Naviance lacks. And we have consulted with Naviance about this and said, we need more information in the trades because this is an area of need for our students, and we really know our population, want to make sure we are supporting them as best as possible. In senior year, we're having a post-secondary planning meeting again. So you're having your initial meeting in junior year, where we're kind of telling you what to do over the summer, what your next steps look like, what your testing plan is, if we're recommending testing for you. And then moving forward to senior year, where we're saying, now we're actually doing it if we haven't started already. We're conducting this through classroom visits, individual and family meetings, and following up with contact with the appropriate representative. So whether that's someone from a military branch, one of our school counselors is identified as a military liaison and has more of an extensive background working with recruiters, and will support the student with the testing and the communication to work with a military recruiter. They're also, this particular counselor is actually looking at a counselor tour of the Naval Academy, which will support just the entire process, because applying to the academies is a very extensive process where you need recommendations from Congress, even up to the president could be a nomination. So really understanding how that works. We're working with students from the beginning to end, nuts and bolts of the application, the essay, the resume, following up on their recommendations. We're making sure that when they write their street name, they're filling it out, that their address is correct. We're walking through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that they're not going to miss any information from a college. And then, as I mentioned, we're following up with the appropriate representative. We're advocating for the students. We're putting in calls to the colleges. We're encouraging the students to do this on their own as well. We'll do a script with the student. We'll practice. If they're going to communicate with a rep, what are you planning on saying to this admissions rep? Practice it on me. We're going to do the first call to the first college together. The second one, I'm going to be here and just listen. And the third one, you can maybe do on your own if you're comfortable, but we'll provide all of these areas of supports for students. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we do identify specific students for scholarship opportunities. So we're not just putting out a blanket statement about scholarships. We are sharing it publicly, but we're also vetting specific students for opportunities that make sense. And some of the ways that we engage students through our post-secondary counseling, we had our college prep day at Citi Field. We had a opportunity program presentation last year. I mentioned our event yesterday, Road to College. Last year, we had our first ever trade and career fair, which is now rebranded as the Future Fair, just to kind of be a little more encompassing of all of the pathways that might be represented there. We've had a handful of guest presenters. We've got college visits, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade this year. And some of them are more traditional, the higher level with 11th grade, more college prep. What's the application process? We're very excited to visit SUNY School this year. It's going to be a hands-on program where students will have the opportunity to see a fishery. They're going to see, if a student is interested in culinary, they have a whole farm to table experience there where they're actually making sausages in the casing. There's goat yoga. There's a variety of opportunities, and we are so excited for them to really engage in this hands-on learning at a school of our size. When we get to know our students so well, we know how they learn best, and so much of that is through this hands-on learning. And just to share some of our snapshots over the past couple of years, in 2022, we had 80 in-person rep visits that our juniors and seniors were invited to attend. In 2021, we had 50 virtual visits. We moved our on-site visits from 3 schools in 2020 to 6 schools in 21 and to 9 schools in 2022. And I don't expect this number to increase too much because we need it to be realistic. We need it to be manageable. We could get 20 schools in here, but we want to make sure we're exposing our students, not just to colleges, but to the right colleges. That's a wise use of their time. We had 25 acceptances at our on-site with a total of $220,000 with 8 pending acceptances and 1 opportunity program acceptance. Over the past several years, our matriculation at Nassau, what I'm most proud of is 2021, 23 students to 2022, 15 matriculation. We're really making sure our students are making appropriate choices about where they're going to school. So I'm not going to Nassau because I'm not sure what I want to do, and I think that's the only option for me. We're looking at trade school. We're making the appropriate fit with Nassau financially, academically. It is a massive institution, and if a student is not able yet to self-advocate, that may not be the place for them. So a university, as I mentioned, Cobleskill, we have a student who might have gone there previously to Nassau, and Cobleskill is a more intimate environment where they're getting the hands-on learning and the type of support that they need, and they're really succeeding there. And this is a snapshot of some of the things that we've done in the past year. We have our Future Fair. We have a rep visit. Binghamton came. One of the things that I like to do on rep visits is try and invite anybody in who might be an alum. I have some excited Marist alums who like to stop by. Mr. Schaefer was here for our Binghamton visit as an alum. And our students are excited to see their teachers and other administrators participating in this as well. As I mentioned, we're part of South Shore Consortium, formerly Holler. I am going to be the post-secondary delegate for New York State CAC, which is New York State College Admissions Association. And we've participated through leadership, through involvement, fly-ins, programming, a variety of events where we have the opportunity to engage with college representatives and representatives from trade schools and employers as well. Another thing that we've done this year, and just kind of to wrap it up, we have put our kids first through marketing. Take a look at our school profile 2020, 2021 to what it looks like currently. It's much more visually appealing, and when we're presenting our students on paper to colleges, we want to make sure that we're marketing them as they are in the way that they deserve. So we've worked with our collaboration with Syntax to really highlight our students and their areas of success. So if you just kind of look at the difference, it really just is much easier on the eye, it's more engaging. You want to read about East Rockaway, where previously it wasn't as exciting of a read. Similar with our transcript. The difference, we consulted with a variety of colleges on the visual appeal of the transcript. what they're looking for, where they want the information. We spoke with not Syntax, I apologize, with Infinite Campus and Custom and asked to see other schools' transcripts and what they were doing as well. And we're really proud of the way our transcript looks. It might be something simple as just a piece of paper with grades on it, but I think that we are presenting our students grades and highlights in the most appropriate and organized way. So when a representative is taking 6 minutes to read an application before moving on to the next one, our students stand out. Also, what we've done with our newsletter is we've digitized it in a much more engaging way where there are clickable links of scholarships, summer programming, job opportunities, volunteer, and our families have more access to engage with what we're offering because it's not just a picture of an application, it's actually a link to RSVP for something, to participate in the NASA partnership. You can apply right there. And then we're also highlighting past activities that we've participated in, such as our college trips. And we've included student quotes. When we go on a college trip, afterwards, we bring them into our office or we ask them on the bus, what was your favorite part? I had a student say on a trip, I could smell the history in this room. And I said to the student, I said, I love that you just said that. Can I please quote you and put it in the newsletter? Because we want to build the excitement around going on college visits, and especially this year, after the past 2 years that we've had, the bus on the way home from Moravia and East Stroudsburg, students were, can we go to Rutgers? Can we go here? I really want to see this college. Will you take us to Alabama? And unfortunately, I'm not taking a bus of students to Alabama, but I was just so moved by the level of excitement and the enthusiasm that the students had. And it just, when they stop you the next day, whether it's a student that's on your caseload or not, and they're just like, hey, we had such a good time. You know that you're putting them first because they're not just seeking out the relationships with the people that they had previously. They're seeing us as a collaborative team, and they know they can speak to anybody in the office because that typically happens. As I mentioned earlier, we do have we do tend to see more students than some of our neighboring peers, and our students will utilize each and every counselor for support. We definitely know each other's kids and work with them and share notes on what has taken place and update people because we are an office of 4 counselors and we have a lot of students and a lot of needs to meet. Even though we're small, we're making sure that our students get that individualized approach that may not be offered everywhere. And that is the end of how I'm sharing how we put kids first in this presentation. Are there any questions at this point?
One question I have is, a lot of great programs. Thank you so much for your hard work with that. I see that. I like the counseling by wandering program. And do you actually track those students who came to a counselor during that time and they just happen to be walking by and making sure that that information then gets put into a folder for that individual child because I have a child at that same counselor? Is there a follow-up with that?
So it's less of a program and more of just a philosophy of our office of a way to get students. Some students are very willing to come into our office. We see them weekly that they're coming in to check in on something, to follow up about something. The opportunity for us to be visible and counsel by wandering is often a student who hasn't filled out a form yet. Hey, I saw that you didn't fill this out yet. Let's pop in and do this. And we grab them and bring them in, or we could show them how to do it quickly on their cell phone. It's going to be a bit more of a brief counseling conversation than something that we would traditionally do in the office. It's more for the impact of being visible and engaging with students and having that, hi, how are you doing? I know you were studying for a test. Hope it went well. Things of that nature. And anything that would need to be followed up on would be then incorporated into our tracking system, which we use in Infinite Campus. Or Naviance, depending on what the result was. If it was something more counseling academic or counseling social emotional, we would put that data in Naviance. In Infinite Campus, and if it was college or post-secondary, we would upload it to Naviance.
And then the last question I had, thank you for answering that. The last question I had is that the students who are not engaged, the students who are failing 3, failing 4, failing 5, putting them first, in the counselor's portfolio and saying that we need to engage every one of our kids. I'm like, what? How do we go about doing that?
So what we typically in our classroom visits, we could see if a student is not engaged in class. We might see it, and we might observe a student who's checked out. We might check in with them at that point to just say, hey, we were in your class. You didn't seem like super excited about the material. We might look at the student and see their academics and see that they're doing very well in that class, and it might have been an off day and not something we need to bring to anyone's attention, because we don't want to necessarily call everything out that a student is doing. We want to support them and celebrate them where it's appropriate. We will look at grades when we get progress reports. Every counselor prints their progress reports, looks through them, looks at not just the students who are failing a lot of classes. We're going to look at student improvements as well and bring those students in and celebrate the improvements. But we work quite collaboratively with teachers as well as our assistant principals. If there's a student at risk with a certain amount of failing courses, there are conversations that we have quarterly, sometimes semester-based, with other administrators when we're really focusing on like student at risk of graduation, making sure this past couple of weeks we met with students to make sure they were attending any of the regents prep necessary, because we just had January regents. And there were, based off of some of that interaction where it was not just the counselor as the area of the support, but also another administrator to talk about the severity of the situation. You're at risk if you don't pass this class. You're either going to have to retake it in summer school, retake it next year. It's pushing your graduation back. And we had some really great success stories at the January regents that we're very proud of. But every counselor looks at all of their progress reports, all of their IPRs, at the individual progress report, which is more social emotional based, is kind of baseline where a student is emotionally, if they seem, if they could be academically engaged and not engaged socially. That's some of the data that we'll be tracking as well through those reports. And we meet with our students in the classroom quarterly, and usually that results in some of them asking to come see us, or we have our individual meetings as well for scheduling, post-secondary planning, or just as needed. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, you give me some part of that. I'm still more interested in what's the communication with the parents at that time? I guess my question is it directed that the teachers should be directly conversing with parents and students about failing their class, or is it more that it's a collaboration between the guidance counselors and the teachers when students are failing 3, 4, 5, classes?
It's a collaboration.
Things are going on, you can see things going on.
So it's always going to be quite collaborative with students and families. One of the things that's my philosophy that I make sure that the counselors kind of drive home is that you want to picture your counselor as the empty chair at your dining room table. We're part of these family conversations. We hope that's our goal, is when we're talking about post-secondary plans, when we're talking about classroom struggles, personal struggles, academic struggles. Imagine one of us there as the intermediary, because sometimes that creates conflicts with students and parents. They can get a little heated, and we want to make sure that we're there to advocate for the student, but also be in partnership with the family and the teachers as well. So there's a lot of, we have a SST meeting once a week. So if there's a student that we're seeing a lot of issues on, whether academic or behavioral concerns, we'll meet with the entire support staff, dean, administrators, nurse, social workers, psychologists, and counselors to talk about things that we're seeing with the student. And at some point, someone at the meeting might have some additional data to support us. We are often emailing with teachers, visiting their classes to talk about students individually, whether a student is failing or whether a student has a 75, and we think that 75 should be an 85 based off the student's academic ability.
Still my question. Do we have any partnerships with trade unions? I know you mentioned trade schools, but do we help our students? Because every union, and it's, I don't want to call it a trick, every union has a special way to fill out the application. So just thought process, maybe we try to partnership, because there's a lot of things out there, especially for females to get into these trade unions. And, it's just, trade schools are great, but
So we're working on that. It's definitely an area that we see that's an area of growth for us, because it's somewhat of a mystery. Colleges, depending on the school, you have a little more. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's your application. The unions, you kind of have to look specifically. So one of the things that we're doing this year with our future fairs, we do have more more unions coming, and we're very excited about that because we want the exposure. We want those partnerships, and we have over the past couple of years worked very closely with Michael White at the Carpenters Union. He's very supportive of our school. He's actually coming to both our career day and, oh really?
Yeah.
And our future fair. So we've worked with him since 2020. He's come every year or sent a rep from his organization and really shared a lot of insight on what the ins and outs were. And our goal is to develop partnerships with as many unions as we have with him, because he's someone who can just pick up the phone and call. He'll come in and help a student apply. We haven't had that interest yet, that exact match with his organization, but we're looking to create what we have with him with other unions. And we are open to suggestions. Being a small school, we have a lot of connections. So if anybody, can put us in contact with people, we're always looking to expand our student and work partnerships.
I got a guy.
You got it.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, great. We look forward to it. Future Fair is February 17th.
Great.
I have a question. So as far as the National Community College Program, it said you want to advocate for more spots. Is it limited, or how does?
So we've advocated for more spots in our Barry Tech program. We've grown that to 10 spots per 10, 11th grade spots and to 10, 12th grade spots. Our Nassau program this year, we have 5 students enrolled.
And is it limited to that, or it can be as many as are? It's capped. It's capped at 5.
I would say 5 is a safe number for now. It becomes somewhat of a financial obligation with transportation. And we also don't want to make our classes too small, and then we wouldn't be able to fill as many sections as we would normally. So it's our pilot year. 5 is working really well. We're going to look at February 28th. We're having a virtual interest presentation with the person from Nassau. And at that point, we'll see how many students submit applications. I think given that it was our pilot year, we don't have a whole lot of data to base it on. So if we have 7, and that seems like a fair number, and it's not going to impact anything negatively, we want to make sure those students have that opportunity. And just to really, with that, everything that we do is individualized. So if we have 7 students and we determine that, the students, the families, the counselors, that's the best fit for them, we're going to advocate for those 7 kids.
I just want to say, I think you touched on some incredible points, and tailoring, your direction or your ideas to the specific student's needs and who they are as a young person is super important. But I think one of the great things also about being in a small school district is that you have the ability to meet not only just like every single kid within your area, but to meet their parents too. Because sometimes it's like the parents that are reaching out all the time and they're trying so hard for their kids, and then there's a group of kids or parents that may not be as forthcoming or go out of their way to really reach out and make that connection and that relationship with you. So I guess a challenge would be, how do you reach out and make those connections and relationships with all the kids, all the parents? And I know it might be very, very difficult, but that would be a high level challenge to put kids first and reach out and meet everyone, right? So there's some great students, there's some not so good students there. Everyone's good at different things, and identifying that, which it sounds like you're working on and doing, it's a work in progress for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the high level challenge would be to really interact and meet with all of the kids, all of the parents, figure out what they're good at and really put them on the right career path. And it sounds like you're doing that. So I want to applaud you. I think you really landed on, like, you didn't say one thing that didn't make any sense or that was not in alignment with at least how I feel. And I think you're doing a great job. That would be my high level challenge though. It's like, how do you reach out to kind of what Don was saying before when he stole my question, is to, really land on the kids whose parents might not be as engaged for whatever reason, or the students that might have this underlying incredible talent that nobody's going to know about because they might not even be showing up to school, or they might be late all the time, or they might be an amazing artist or an incredible welder or incredible whatever. That is such an incredible challenge, and I admire your presentation and what you're trying to do. So keep up the good work, and please just try and reach out to everyone and figure out who these kids are so that they can be on the right path.
You know, we hope that with our parent meetings for every grade level, we're targeting something specific. So if you have a 10th grader, this is a program for you. If you have an 11th grader, this is the program for you. We're not gonna reach every parent. We will bring every single student at some point of the year into our office
That's
for,
great.
for just an introductory meeting. They may not last a minute, but we do call them our minute meetings, where we're just like, we're introducing ourselves, we're reminding them what we're here and what we're available to do. We're asking them to tell us something about themselves that they're proud of, something they wanna work on. And in those conversations, we get some tidbits. We ask them, tell us something about your family. And if they are sharing information that, whether it's concerning or whether we recognize they need additional support in school because they might not be getting it at home,
Right.
we're gonna follow up more aggressively with some of those students. We had a parent this year who we reached out to about a post-secondary meeting. Parent said, my student has this. I trust you guys. I've worked with the department before, not my first child going to college. I don't need to be at this meeting. Send me an email and let me know what happens.
Right.
And it's just the way that you communicate with the different families. There are certain families like that one that it's just back and forth email regularly, and I know what's happening there. Some parents, I say, really want you at this meeting. Can you on your lunch break either get on the phone on speaker if you can't get into the building? Can we do a Google Meet? And we also have for our scheduling and post-secondary meetings, we have afternoon and evening appointments available as well. So they can come during the school day, they can come during the evening, and we're looking in the next year to have, for financial aid support, to maybe do something on a weekend. So that's a new program that is in the very, very early stages of being put together.
Excellent, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of work and very informative. Thank you.
All right, do you want me to close this down?
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Review minutes of regular Board of Education meeting. You guys have, questions? Guys, any questions? about
No questions.
Okay. How about questions on the next board agenda, next board meeting agenda?
No. Good.
Good.
All right. Yep, one item for discussion. Yeah. Okay, all right, so item for discussion, child exploitation resources for the K-12 community.
Yeah, I picked it up this week, it was an email, I don't know if I forwarded to you guys, I think I did, but anyway, it's the, schoolsafety.gov, and schoolsafety.gov is something that's sent out to all the boards around, and it also goes into the superintendent's office of each school. And what they recently have just opened up, which I thought was terrific, is, and I'm gonna read right from the passage, because it says it all right here, okay? The new focus on child exploitation in various forms, including online exploitation and human trafficking, and will serve to complement and amplify other federal agency efforts on the issue of pulling together existing information, resources, and guidance for members of the K-12 school community. And what it does is that you just click on it, you could get the link right onto our link, hyperlink it, go there so parents could become more educated. They also offer school training for teachers in the areas, because as we all know, in society, there are many different ways that children get taken away from school, taken away meaning not engrossed within their classes anymore, and they start exhibiting some signs that there could be some exploitation going on, within. So I would like an opportunity that maybe we can address this and maybe look at it, the administrators can look at that to see the value of it and placing it on the website or publicizing to the parents also as well as the teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue. We can share it with the administrative team and get their feedback. And then from there, what we've done in the past with school safety issues, So I can send out a Connect Ed message, indicating where it is on the website, and they can click on it as a resource for information for them. I think that might be something that we've done in the past that has been pretty successful. Parents appreciate it, that they have a place to go in case something unfortunate like that comes up.
Thank you, I appreciate
I'd
that.
be interested in,
Yeah, the administrators can get a look at it and then, figure out how you would like to, if it's worth placing. And if it is, then how to get the word out to the parents, and teachers.
okay,
Great, thank you.
do that.
All right, everyone, this concludes this work session for the East Rockaway Board of Education. We're now going to adjourn and go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations. Thank you and good night, everyone.